What's up, everybody? We're back here for a fired up chat with a good friend and someone I've known for quite a long time. Mr. Scott Davey is joining us today for a pretty fired up chat around a lot of things in relation to leadership, what's going on in the market, what's happening in business, all of that juicy stuff that we love to put across this channel. So, Scotty, thanks for joining us, mate.
Thanks, Ben. Appreciate it. And yeah, it's been a long time coming. I'm looking forward to our fired up chat.
Yeah. I mean, one of the big topics with fired up community and content is procrastination. So Scotty and I have been talking about this since the 15th of January, and now recording on the 27th of the 3rd, we're getting shit done. No more mucking around. We're going to wing most of this, but we talk pretty often, and our conversation always leads back to the same thing, which is what's going on in your market? What's happening in your world? What's happening with the businesses that you're involved with, you're talking to? What's going on in your company? Because I think we're, fair to say we've both got a really innate passion for this type of thing anyway. So when it comes to the podcast that we listen to, I know we listen to the same stuff. When it comes to, getting ahead and leveling up and doing things, we're also interested in figuring that out, right? So we can have the best life and give our families the best life. And if you're not getting ahead and leveling up, you're quickly going to find yourself going backwards. So,
100%.
Mate, the best place to start, just give us, I know you've been in the corporate world, the industry, you've worked for some amazing companies, but give us a bit of Scotty background that you're comfortable to talk about so we can frame that up at the starting point.
Yeah. Thanks, mate. So thanks for the opportunity to talk through a bit around my background. So I've got over 20 years experience spanning mainly across sales and leadership and sales leadership roles. So started my career in sales across real estate and employment, and then mainly in digital advertising is where I've spent a lot of my time through companies like Seek and the REA Group. And I guess if I think about my skill sets and sort of where I've spent most of my time, the last over 12 years, I've been in sales leadership roles. So working from phone-based teams through to field teams, key account management teams, across a lot of small, medium and large businesses. So it's spanned across all different levels of businesses. And I think that's really helped me, dealing with over 1,000 businesses over my time. I've really got to understand how companies operate and the ability to kind of swoop in and get that visual and build relationships to the point where I'm able to uncover and understand the pain points that people are going through. And it's really interesting from large businesses through to small businesses. They often experience a lot of commonalities in their challenges and their problems. There are differences, but it's been such a great experience to have that breadth of being able to really get under the hood and understand what's going on in these companies.
Yeah. And you mentioned Seek there, and that's where we met, right? So this is going back.
Yeah.
I mean, I was there. I started there in 2008. When did you start there? Same time?
Yeah, I was 2010.
2010. Okay. So a couple of years later. So, and look, that was like this new disruptive company, right? Going to come and take on the newspapers and take on the expensive print ads and the Courier Mail and the Gold Coast Bulletin and everything like that. And Scotty had moved up to Brisbane at the time. And it's interesting because if you go back to that stage and you've got these big teams at the Gold Coast Bulletin, big teams in the Courier Mail and all of these papers, sales teams selling print ads for the Wednesday job run and the Saturday job run, 10 grand for a quarter page, 20 grand for a half page. And as we're kind of joined this industry of online classifieds, I think it may have been for me and potentially for you, that early stage kind of enjoyment about being with a company that's disruptive or a company that's moving forward. Because a lot of those conversations were super hard, right? Hey, we want you to stop going in the newspaper and start spending money with us. No one's going to look online for a job. Why would they do that? Everyone's used to using the paper. They'll always use the paper. Usual common shit that you get when you're going through a change in the environment. But you've been with more businesses than just that business. That's been in the disruptive space and the sales space. Like, keen to hear your thoughts on, I guess let's start with this. Like, how much has the world changed, or has the corporate world changed in the last 10 years for you compared to what it was? What do we do? Let's go back to 2016. It's probably, as you've gone through that transition, are you like, what's the biggest things that you've noticed and uncovered throughout that time frame?
Through my experience, I felt that everything was, there wasn't significant amount of change in how companies operated up until probably COVID. So we had peaks and troughs in the economy between 2016 and between 2020, but ultimately, the way companies operated, they were heavy, resource heavy, is kind of the theme that I look at now where we're at compared to where that was in the past.
Yeah.
But like, if we look at the examples that you used, that you and I went through in working for a company that was growing and starting up and scaling, like, looking back on that, I don't know about you, I didn't know it at the time, but we were really going through a bit of an evolution in a significant change in how people engage and operate. So not necessarily the company structure and how they're framed up, but the evolution in how people market and engage with each other. And that was from print to online, as you described. It's fascinating. I still go through that today, though. I still every now and then have a challenge around people who are still on print. And we talk about the fact that, AI and technology is moving forward very quickly, and that will probably evolve to something else in how they market and operate in the future. So it's funny how some things change, but some things don't. And there are still some fundamentals that people hold on to and believe in. What has changed significantly, though, to get to the point, is companies are looking at more and more efficient ways of operating. And that's something I've really noticed dial up, particularly in the last 12 months. But since COVID, there was a lot of stress for, I'd say, a short period of time. There was a lot of stress on businesses, which then led to a windfall of revenue for most businesses, an opportunity for most businesses. But the opportunity where they said, well, hang on, we used to have, 70 people in finance, and we had 50 people in sales, and we had 40 people in admin. We could probably do with shaving 10% off of that, or 10 or 20% off in certain areas. There used to be a huge trend around senior managers having PAs. Just as an example, like, I've seen that firsthand, the shared PA start to play out to no PA, and the expectations that you show up as a senior leader, you have all the resources available, you should be able to execute without needing someone to help you along the way. And that is kind of becoming more of a luxury now. I don't know what your experience has been seeing that.
Yeah. I think it's the evolution, right? In 2014, when I was with that startup company, I had an EA. I had a physical EA that was dedicated 100% to me, emails, appointments, meetings, taking notes, booking flights, travels, trip. And I was like, this is awesome. This is so good. To the point where I was like, I cannot live without this person, right? And from 2014 to the end of 2024, I had an EA. But at the start of 2025, I got a new EA, and it was the AI EA. And that person manages my calendar, takes notes on my meetings, answers my questions, does the follow-ups. So, I'm a bit older than you and I've been around, but I remember going from landline to mobiles. I was one of the initial employees with Vodafone, and everybody was going, no one's going to get a mobile phone. I'll never have one. That means people can contact you all the time. I'm happy with the landline at home. Then that came. Jobs for cars and classifieds. Print's going to own it, and all of a sudden print is just gone for the most part. Well, certainly in the classified space, right? So I think we're in that interesting phase where the next thing is flowing through. It's around, how do you be more efficient? How can you get the same thing done with less, or maybe you can even get more done with less? Because to my physical EA point of view, she was working 7 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Yeah.
So she wasn't checking my emails and my calendars at 9 o'clock at night. And that was fair and reasonable, but this new one does.
Totally. And I think you're touching on something that is becoming not just a kind of a luxury or a nice to have, but an actual need in terms of the skill set of being ready and adaptable to change. Like you talk about having a PA that going from a physical PA to let's call it a virtual AI technology PA,
Mm.
and the fact that we've kind of got to be open to everything now. Like the things that I don't know what you've seen, the things that I see and I read about and hear about, they would have been fanciful 10 years ago. I could not imagine. It would have been absolute fantasy to realize that there were computers that you could talk to or technology that you could talk to, and it would give you an emotional and intelligent and meaningful response. You know, like just even that concept was really hard to understand. So you look at what's coming up and even what's happening in San Francisco with driverless cars through Waymo, and the concept. It's funny. I talk to people like close to me, like my mother, and that around the concept of, hey, do you know one day we probably won't be driving cars, and it's like,
Yeah.
what do you mean? And no, that will never, and I will not accept that. I want to have control of my car, hold the steering wheel, and I want to be driving it. And in reality, we know like these systems and technologies are probably already safer than humans driving a car. But there's obviously a period of change, but the need to adapt to that change and the openness, I think, is what will separate people who are going to win and be successful versus those who won't.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. And I think like there's this big trend, there's a massive hype at the moment around AI. And it's like, I think it's taken a lot of airtime and maybe people getting potentially a little bit too consumed. I might be a little bit guilty of that as well. But it's certainly not trying to find I'm trying to find its place in the type of work that I do. I'm not trying to create a virtual avatar of myself that can go and run training sessions. I don't see the value in that. I see the value in this, right? Turning up and actually having a conversation and a connection. So if we just, that's where we see it heading, right? And I think that's an important part of the conversation. But like, where is it now? I know you've mentioned offline around the shift in leadership, what it takes to be an effective leader. What was probably a manager, I don't know, 3 to 5 years ago. That role is like, it's just not really as effective as what is required from someone who is an effective, true leader. So do you want to talk about that a bit? Like, because I know you've run big teams. You're probably leading managers or leading leaders. What's the shift there, or what do you think is the difference between a really effective leadership versus something that's a bit half bar?
Yeah, totally. Look, in terms of the change, I think there has been some meaningful change over the last few years, even in the expectations on individuals, but expectations on leaders around what knowledge they're able to impass on people who are working within their team, but also impass back into the business and being a subject matter expert within where they sit, right? I think you used to be able to really lean on other parts of the business, so whether it's marketing or go to market, to be able to pick up some of these, use their advice and their recommendations and just run with it. And now, like I'm really fortunate in the companies that I've worked for in recent times. The expectation is that as the leader within a sales team, for example, you need to still be able to help provide input around product, input around go-to-market strategy and plan, input around what is the commercial framework and arrangement that we should set up to sell this product, or to at least gain adoption on this product. And so the requirement for more general business knowledge and general management knowledge is growing. In terms of individuals and working closely with individuals, I mean, you would have seen this as well, mate. My experience has been the way in which you lead teams has evolved and changed, even in the last 5 years, right? We've gone from a world where you probably, yeah, I probably wouldn't class it as leadership back in the 70s and 80s. In some cases, I probably would have said that was very much a hierarchical style of leadership or management is where I'd probably class it.
Yeah.
It's, hey, I need you to do that. You're paid by this company or me as the owner. Just go and do it. And that world obviously has changed over the last 25 years or so. But even the last 5 years, and looking at the generations that are coming through, there's been a big shift in, the type of engagement that they need to help ensure that they are motivated and they will deliver the outcomes that you need them to. And that is through holding their hand, understanding who they are, knowing what their motivations are, and to a degree, Simon Sinek talks about this being the servant to your people. And that's kind of the way that I've seen it evolve. And the most effective way of leading teams now is, I'm going to treat you as my customer. Yes, technically you report to me, but what can I do to help you? How do I help influence and motivate you and give you the insights that are going to help you get behind what we're doing to achieve the goal? So there's more work, I believe, these days behind. I don't know. Yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I used to lead big teams, like huge teams. I mean, the company that I was in prior to, going off and doing my own thing was like 4,500 headcount. And the headcount under me was about 180. Direct reports, maybe 15. And I think it's hard. It's super, super hard because not only are you leading the outcomes of all of these people, but let's be fucking real. You are leading their emotions. You're leading their personal life, because that's actually the hardest part of it. Everyone's got a unique situation, a unique demographic, a unique thing that they're going through, and you're constantly having to kind of work through and pivot through those ups and downs. And Steve's having a bad day and Mary wants Steve's job. So then Susie's talking about Mary, who hates Pete. And it's just like, fuck. And that's what I really do not miss about that. And I think it's unavoidable, right? Because people come to work and show up, and that they are going to show up and be present based on everything that's happening around them. It's very hard to turn that off. Very strong, astute professionals can go, I leave that shit at the door and I turn up and do my own thing. But you're only leaving the stuff at your house at the work door. Once you get into the work door, now you've got this new environment. Now you've got the work wife and the work husband like bashing down your door, giving you shit and stuff. So for me, just like in reflection, that was the hardest part. And in all honesty, my tolerance became quite low for that.
Yeah, I get it.
Which will sound bad, but I'm like, hey, look, I don't care. Like, we're not here for that. Of course, I care about you, and there's a well-being piece of this, but I know you're a big fan of this as well. When it came to the work environment, it was really important for us to have those proper business values inside the organization. And that would usually cut through that noise. Like, no, cut that out. That's not aligned to our values. No, we don't do that. It's not aligned to the values. But yeah, I mean, and I guess as well, what I felt at the kind of back end of that role, stickability became less and less and less. And it's maybe it was that group coming through in that age bracket, but the idea of having someone in a leadership or management position for more than 18 months was very rare.
Yeah.
So then it was that cycle. Here comes the new one, on board, trained, things are going great. Oh, fallout. Here comes the new one, on board, trained, fallout. And sometimes the fallout was okay because they're like, hey, I've been here 18 months, I'm heading in a new direction. I've had a promotion, I've had an offer, and you can't blame people for that. But, when I was a young whippersnapper in my 20s, it was all about go to the company, work hard, be loyal, climb up the ranks. And I don't think that that's the narrative out there today. I think people are like, go in, grind hard, get out, and keep moving for progression. Don't know if you agree with that because you're in it, I'm not in it, but whether you're seeing that in your current environment or whether things are different to that.
Totally. I've got a lot of thoughts based on what you just said, but I'll focus on
Let's
that one
go. We got time.
It is absolutely like, the last company I was with was Seek. I was there for 13 years, mainly leading sales teams. And it dawned on me that when I was out exploring my future opportunities and that it took me longer than I thought to secure the right role and the role I wanted. And that's because, part of it is this tenure. You in the past, we sort of looked at tenure as a reward and a way of a part of achievement, right? You go, if you've been in a company for 20 years, like, good on you. You must be incredible at what you do. And
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
right.
yeah,
Companies, like, even the way I see it now, like if someone's been in the company for 10, 15, 20 years, that might be completely fine if they've had credible movement, they've moved across the business, they've continued to increase their skills. But if they haven't, then I've got to ask myself, why has this person stayed still for so long?
yeah,
And is that the type of quality that I want to work with, or we want to work with as a business?
yeah,
And
yeah,
to be honest, most companies would say, and people would say no now, because it's getting to the point where you can't just rely on one company and one business to build all of the skill sets that you need to develop and enhance your career, unless it's a really fast paced and well established business that is constantly challenging itself. I'm very fortunate to be in one of those right now, but there's not a lot of businesses that are like that. And so, yeah, you're right. People who are jumping and moving and kind of, to a degree, looking after their own skill growth and recognizing when it's time to move and shift. Hopefully, it's not always just about money, because it is about skill growth and opportunity. It's probably where it will lead to money long term. But it's a good strategy to have.
yeah. Yeah, you raised a good point there, actually, because I mean, seeing someone sitting in the same role, same title for 5 years, that's red flags in terms of like ambition and drive and motivation. But if someone's been in the same company for 5 years and moved several different roles, then that's probably a better sign there as well. But yeah,
Yeah, look, it's saying that there's circumstances, right? Like, if I think about people that I work with now and I've worked with in the past, some people may live in regional Queensland, right? And so what they do, the role that they do, they're doing the best role in that marketplace that really you could get in that marketplace, and they love what they do. And if that's the
mm,
case, that's totally fine.
mm,
But still, to your point, there is a flag there to go, hang on, I just want to understand, like, you've been in this role for 5 years or 8 years or 10 years. That hasn't changed. What have
mm,
you done to increase your skill set over time? And have you been able to, can you demonstrate to me or to someone hiring you that your capability has increased dramatically as a result of you being self-motivated and driven to learn and to
yeah,
grow?
yeah. Great point.
So, yeah.
Great point. I think again, just from my observations and the clients that I work with Fired Up, and a lot of these are running big teams as well. Again, I don't want to sound like the old codger, because I would have called these people old codgers when I was a young guy. But that next generation, that next generation coming through, there seems to be, what's the best way to word this? I think primarily a lot of impatience, and secondarily, a lot of entitlement. So it's like
Yeah.
they come into the job, they're like, cool, yeah, been here 4 weeks, need a pay rise. I've been here 2 months, let's get some equity on the table. But you're not really
Yeah.
nailing the job. I'll nail the job when you reward me for it. And yeah, I'll be taking 6 weeks leave because I'm going to Zoolandia in Thailand for a 3 week rave. So I feel like that kind of grind, or that really, like, you got to earn your stripes. And that's where I think, like, if you can say you're all this great shit on your resume, and you can turn up to the interview and absolutely nail it with your lighting and cameras and perfect scripting. But to me, so much of that is irrelevant until, like, let's see it in action. Let's see if you can do what you
Totally.
say you're going to do. And I reference checking, don't even know how good that is anymore. But I would want to find people, validated and vetted people, that can talk to actual specific outcomes and changes that person contributed to that business over what period of time. And if that stuff can't be done, it's like, Right. It's gambling. It's putting the ball on the roulette table and going, well, let's have a go.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. And I mean, yeah, reference checking is an interesting one. So the business I work in now, we don't reference check. And it's for a good reason, because reference checks are always the person that someone's giving you a reference to contact is generally the person that's going to be their biggest advocate. And so that doesn't mean you can't understand more about someone. You know, the opportunity where you go, where do they work? Do I know anyone there? Do I know anyone that knows anyone that worked there to help really understand a raw perspective on them is so important. But no, look, you're right. I don't want to speak generally, because there's some incredible people that are in their early mid-20s and really driven. And I think, I don't know, I'm you're a dad, I'm a dad. I think a lot about that in terms of the way I parent now, and I think about the types of kid that I want, children that I want to bring up in the world. And you want people who recognize the level of that there is hard work that you need to do, and it's not about sort of putting your hand out and hoping that someone's just going to give you an equity in a company within 2 months, or a pay rise within 3 months because you've done a good job. I think that comes down to kind of the way you parent and how those kids evolve as children into adults, and then what they expect as a result. Have they been given everything over time? Maybe. So I think it's partly a generational thing, and that's because the world is becoming more generous. People have more, and we have a lot more than what our parents really had and that in the past. And I know that there's controversy around that changing now with affordability and that of housing and that, but in terms of goods and things, like bloody hell, you can jump on Amazon, I can go and buy a new jacket, I can buy some new sunglasses, or a wig or whatever I want to buy. And I can get that delivered within 24 hours and off you go. And really, like, there was so many times you talk to your parents or your grandparents, that wasn't the reality. Like, you couldn't just go and buy what you want. You had to save for it because we didn't have disposable income. And I think that's a big difference now that kids, and I know I experienced a bit of that, growing up through as I was getting older, is that there was a bit more abundance than what there used to be. And I think that plays out in people's personalities now.
Yeah. Does it what?
But actually, one thing I think is important, you did touch on, I just want to evolve to, is the fact that these people, and it doesn't matter what age they are, because we experience this type of behavior, regardless of age sometimes, but the world is changing, right? Like, with technology, I know we talk about AI, I'm so sick of the word. I'm sure, anyone listening is probably sick of that as well. But the reality is the world is changing so quickly, and if some of the tasks and the things that you're doing now, it's going to be automated in the future. And so right now there is a demand. There's still it's softened, but there's still, like in Australia, it's softened, but there's still a demand for people. Unemployment rate is at 4% at the moment, or 4.1. It's still really low. As that scales up though, and as technology helps us solve for more things, then those people won't be asking, or they'd be pretty stupid to ask for equity or more money, because the reality is that we're moving into a world where we aren't going to be as in demand as what we may have been in the past.
Yeah.
Keen to hear your thoughts.
Well, I mean, totally agree. I think there are jobs that are going to completely disappear because of AI very, very soon, if not already started. Just look at the big tech companies. The people who know the tech, they're the first to the new technology. That new technology is AI. It's been around for years. It's getting more sophisticated and advancing so quickly. So if you want to see whose jobs are going, go and look at the tech companies. And, Meta just got rid of 2,000 to 4,000. Block just got rid of 40% of their workforce. Atlassian, these are the big dogs. These are the ones hitting the headlines. But then 100%. I personally know of other businesses locally as well who are like, yep, we don't have EAs anymore, for example. Like, why would we? Or we just halved the recruitment team because now all of our screening and processing and booking is done by AI. But this person here still turns up and greets and does the face-to-face and all that. but they've been able to minimize. Now, here begs the question from a business point of view. Yes, we've minimized, we've cut costs. This is great. But from the experience point of view, for the people who are on the receiving end of it, is that hitting the mark? And I think that's, I don't know, I'm seeing so much funny shit at the moment on socials where, this guy, he's got his phone out and he's like saying things to GPT like, I'm about to get hit by a car. What should I do? He's got the camera on and GPT's like, oh, absolutely. That's no fun at all. You should probably get out of the way. And he goes, no, it's going to hit me. And he goes, that's great. Please get out of the way. And GPT's doing this very therapist kind of approach where you're awesome and absolutely, and we can do it. And that looks great, which is just not true. So my point in that is like the danger of kind of overinflating people's egos, their dreams, their ability can be quite damaging on the flip side. But if you're putting your job or your application into a business and that application is handled by AI and you send your application in and 2 seconds later you get an email back going, yep, no, thanks, but no thanks. You're like, Like, has anybody even looked at this? What a shit experience. So I think the most important thing through the transition, businesses are going to need to cut costs. Yeah. But businesses 100 years ago needed to cut costs. Businesses 50 years ago needed to think about the evolution and what's coming down the track to stay forward and relevant. Go and ask Kodak. Go and talk to Nokia if they wish they moved a bit faster. I'm sure Blockbuster's got some viewpoints on that. So you do have to think about what's coming down the track to stay relevant. There's relevant and then there's valuable. And if you can find a mix of those two things, which is, we do have AI filtering our candidates, which has improved our candidate experience, which we've measured through satisfaction and turnaround times and cutting through the noise, then to me that sounds great.
Completely agree. Like if I think about a lot of the focus right now with in the business I'm in and the team that I work with, it is about using technology to help you within your role and then to help deliver better outcomes. So whether it be customer facing outcomes, whether it be internal efficiency outcomes, like using, products that are going to help, reduce your time to respond to an email, book in calendar meetings, whatever it might be, right? Like simple stuff right now. But no, I think you're absolutely right. And I think it depends on what type of, like there's the efficiency. So you start like the baseline, you go, okay, the baseline is going to be, you're going to need tools that are efficient, and that will help to maybe take out 1, 2, 3, 10, 20 people in your business, depending how big you are. But it's only going to solve for a portion of it right now. And it's kind of like taking, walking up a set of stairs. It's sort of step by step in terms of, right, we start with that. But what we know is that the industry that we're in, we're selling a service. So, we're going out and we're, being a trades business, we're still going out and we're consulting on what the job needs to be done, for example, and then you need physical people to do the job. That step of coming out and consulting on what needs to be done, you could argue in the future, well, maybe there's a way that could be automated. But right now, people probably value being able to talk to someone. They want to talk to you, Ben. They want to talk to Jane or Gary, who comes out about getting their floors redone, and have someone to talk through advice rather than, hey, the GPT equivalent through your platform. Thanks for reaching out. We have these 3 options, and here's a picture of what it looks like in your living room. And some people aren't ready for that. I know I like to talk to someone still. And there's so many services and industries, particularly things that are more sensitive around health and things like that, where that's not going to change anytime soon. But that connection between the human and using technology is where I think right now the sweet spot is. If you want to go and buy a tent online, you don't need a person consulting necessarily with you, right? You can do that through chat. Yeah. But things that are a little more personal, I think, are going to be really important still.
Totally agree. I'm just looking at the other screen here because I saw there's some data the other day, and obviously there's 100 bits of data coming out very, very quickly. A lot of data coming out, and then there's a lot of interpretation of the data as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's I've been down this rabbit hole, right? Like, I mean, I got Chat GPT in May 2023. That's when I got it on my desktop, and it's when I got it on my mobile.
Mm,
And it was like, hey, how cool is this? Like, hey, rewrite this email. Cool. Tell me about the moon. It was pretty generic, boring shit. Um, but then it was only probably about 12, 18 months ago was when I was showing friends, you might have been one of them, check this out. I can talk to it. It talks back. I can show it stuff on the
mm,
camera and it knows what it is. So that's a big leap. And then since then, the last 12 months, all of these other platforms have come out and all these other AI tools and integrations. And I've been deep down that hole to the point now where I feel like ChatGPT is right down the bottom of AI in terms of usability, functionality, relevance,
yeah,
honesty. I tried to
yeah,
train it to
yeah.
be like, be honest with me, tell me I suck, challenge my ideas. And it's like, so I went and trained it in the back end for personalization. I was like, cool, let's do this again. He's like, absolutely, we can do this. I got this. And I was like, oh,
Yeah,
fuck's sake,
you
you're still
can't
not getting it.
change the nice personality out of GPT. It's
No,
just, yeah,
no. I see, Claude, who's the other application, which has
yeah,
got,
great
Claude
platform.
Co-work and Claude Code. Their new TV ads now are taking the piss out of Chat GPT because they're basically saying that, he or she or GPT is going to incorporate ads into their responses,
Mm,
and that
yeah,
Claude's not going to
yes.
bring ads into theirs. So let's watch this space. Um, Lastly, last topic I want to talk to you because again we mentioned this offline. Is it something around like companies going stagnant? And I guess we're kind of on the topic already, but like,
Yeah,
what do you mean? What do you mean by that? First of all, and secondly, what are you doing about it for the company that you work with?
totally. We have touched on this a little bit, but if I think about like companies, if you think about what stagnant is, it's not moving, right? Stagnant is still in dead in the water on a calm day where there's no breeze and you've got a big sail up, like you're just floating, you're just existing on the pond, and you're not necessarily looking around your boat to see, is there an oar around, or can I start a motor, or can I look around of different parts of the pond that I can slowly shift to catch some wind to sail. That is what it's about. It's about looking around to see what is going on in my marketplace, but the broader, sort of the micro and the macro. What's going on in the micro right now within my environment? What's going on in the world? And is there a correlation that I need to watch out for? And part of that you could start with just internally. So first you start internal, look at, well, okay, how are my staff operating? How are my team operating? How are we operating as a business? How's my product and my service going? How's that going against competitors? Have I changed or evolved that over the years? And if you don't feel like there is a need to, then I would really challenge, I don't care what industry or area you're in, you should always be challenging the need to, even if it's a 1% tweak, what else could I
Mm.
offer? What else could we change and adapt to? So when I talk about stagnant internally, that's the stagnant part of it. Then there's the external part, which is, see, that's internal, the external part where you look at market and conditions and go, well, right now there's a lot of conflict going on, as you know. There's a lot of question marks around high debt levels and across different countries and the growing debt levels of our economies. That is absolutely going to have an impact. And, I think figuring out, we're talking about kind of being reactionary to a degree earlier, it's how much do you want to react to that right now? And something I've learned is don't react too quickly to anything. I'm very reactionary. It's probably my nature. I get very excited about things. And I've learned, like, okay, Scott, just take a breath. You're looking at one perspective, look at multiple perspectives. So if I think about businesses being stagnant and the need to be agile and be moving, it's about looking at every aspect of your business in the world of going, what could I start to sort of shift and move towards based on what I'm seeing? And it's all testing. So if I look within the business I'm in now, we do so much experimenting, and experimenting is awesome because you can do really small bite-sized levels of experiments that can generate insights that will double or triple your business volume or growth really, really quickly, but you've got to be experimenting and trying things. And I'd put it down to that one thing. It is just experiment and try. And it's AI is the same. It's experimenting and trying new tools and resources that you go, well, that wasn't that great. That required too much input. But this thing, geez, this is managing all my email responses. It's saving me 5 hours a week. And that's something worth investing in. And I'm going to roll that out to my team now and help engage with them and help them to see the value in it so they start using it. So, yeah. Love to hear your thoughts, though, mate.
Mate, I agree with everything you say. Like for me as well, like I kind of think standing still is going backwards, because if you're still and everything else is going forward, then you're going in the opposite direction. I'm always like thinking or talking to my clients about, I've often asked them to go, no, it's not true. Not never. I don't often ask them to go and look at what their competitors are doing, because I'm like, it doesn't matter what they're doing. Are we playing copycat or are we playing leader? So to your point, I'm like, let's look at every little aspect of this business, every little customer touch point, every little process, every little interaction, every little bit of value, and start tweaking. Tweak all the way through just to get that 1%, 2%, 3% more. The other thing that I would just add to it is that it's just that continuous learning. People in the business have to have that, to go get on the webinars, read the books, look at the content, look at what else is working, ask a ton of questions. If someone is heading in a direction with their business, their project, their company, and they look like they're absolutely nailing it, that is your best source of information to go and download from. I don't want to go and talk to people who haven't run a marathon and go, how would you run a marathon? It's like, I'm not going to get the right advice from them. So getting to specialists first and getting as much information as you can quickly. That's where I get most of my learnings. The majority of my learnings comes from dealing with my clients, because I'm learning from what they're learning about what their business is learning from what their business is doing. And then the balance of that is coming from my own inquisitive nature and my need to go, well, what if, what if this happens? What if AI does move faster? What if unemployment does go to 20%? What if the housing does, what if housing does drop 10% in the next quarter? What if rents go up 50%? And by asking what if, it's like, okay, let me go look. And to your point, let's run an experiment. Let's run a thesis. Let's run a trial. Let's put something in place that will either validate or exclude us from going down that path even further. And when I do get validation or exclusion, this is just me personally, this is not advice to anybody else, but as soon as I get validation to continue or exclude, I do either one of those things very quickly. If the idea has been excluded, we don't talk about it anymore and we move on. But if the idea has been validated, it's like, okay, let's make some more space to go much, much deeper into this and figure out where it can add value or what it could do for our business, ourselves, whatever it might be.
100%. And sometimes your failures can be your biggest learnings and the biggest opportunity, right? I know the things that I've failed at personally, and like I've cringed at myself about, why did I do that? Fuck, that was so dumb. That was stupid. It's actually been my biggest lesson, and it's the point where it puts so much pressure on yourself that you get better at it. And I think that's the same with experimenting or trying things or going down a certain path. Sometimes that failure, whilst it's a failure that way, you go, I'm really clear now. I'm going that way. That's the way we need to go. And it's super clear that you're going to get the outcome and the success as a result of the failure, not the win.
Yeah. If you're not failing, a lot of the time you're not trying hard enough at all. And it's like, just get used to it. You got to fail forward. In the last 12 months, of 3 businesses I've tried that have failed. Last 12 months. And in the last 24 months, I've started 4 businesses. So 3 of them failed and one of them's doing pretty well. But would this one have done well without failing the others? What have I learnt by the failure of those? And these have been expensive failures. Put the money aside, because the money, time being the most valuable commodity, yes, it cost me a lot of money, but I also spent a lot of time on these things. And that's annoying and frustrating, but the learning has been priceless. So
it's probably where you are today. Mm.
Well, I'm just saying, like, if you haven't failed at something in the last month, you got to pick up your game. You're not trying enough. You need to try something. Even if it's like, I think I would probably struggle to run a half marathon in under an hour. But if that was something that I was really interested in doing, then I should be going out tomorrow and failing the 18-kilometer run, right? I should be failing to get to the 21 because I choke, fall over, and can't do it. But if I'm not failing on anything, I'm really not putting the effort into it.
Oh, totally. Like to make it even a little bit more lighthearted. It's like saying I'm going to have a month off drinking booze, and because I drink 3 times a week. Not me, but let's say you do drink 3 times a week, and I'm going to have a month off. And then there's that one night where there's work party on, or you're with some friends and you have a few drinks. You wake up and go, I completely failed. I'm going to give up now.
Yeah.
I'm going to start back drinking. Like,
Yeah.
It's a good learning. Just get up and just continue your dry spell.
Continue. Move on. Accept it. Give yourself a little punch in the face and on to the next experiment.
That's right.
Scotty, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on, mate. I'd be keen to touch base with you again, couple of months, whatever, and just see what's changed in your landscape and what are the new thoughts on the world. I'm sure we'll have a new discussion on AI in 2 months. I'm sure there'll be a new discussion on the economy and what the war's doing. But if you'd be keen to join us, mate, I'd love to have you back in a couple of months to go over that.
It's been my absolute pleasure. So thank you, mate. And yeah, I have no doubt in a couple of months, the world would have evolved and changed. And I'm sure our lives would evolve and change. And that's a good thing. So we're trying. It means we're trying at experimenting very quickly. So I'm really looking forward to that chat. And thanks again, mate. It's been great to talk to you.
No worries. Legendary. Hey, for anyone watching this episode, we are recording on the 27th of March, 2026. What I was talking to Scott before we started recording about was actually running a property dashboard for your own area. This is if you own property. We're both watching the market very closely, some of the lead indicators that might be impacting that in multiple different ways. I've created a very specific prompt that you can put into your AI, whatever one you're using, and ask that to run you a monthly dashboard for your specific postcode. So, Scotty, it's already in your inbox, but for anybody watching this, I'm going to pin that down below. Grab that, go and do an experiment, go and do a little test, go and try something, try and break it, get some fails on the board. But yeah, there's our little gift to you. Go and run that and get excited about it. And we'll check in again with you in a couple of months. Scotty.
Great idea. Love it. Thanks again.
Take care. Peace out. Bye.